Think Hollywood was the Wild West of shock cinema. Italy laughed in Hollywood's face and then set the rulebook on fire. In the 1970s, Italian filmmakers didn't just push boundaries, they bulldozed right over them, leaving censors, critics, and sometimes even their own actors begging for mercy. Why did these movies get banned in country after country? And what made them so irresistible to thrill seekers and midnight maniacs alike? Buckle up. Some movies on this list are so notorious, they're still illegal in places. Salo, or The 120 Days of Sodom, 1975. Here's the film that makes even die-hard horror fans wince. Salo isn't just infamous, it's cinematic contraband. Picture this. Pier Paolo Pasolini, already one of Italy's most controversial filmmakers, decides to adapt the Marquis de Sade's 120 Days of Sodom, but not in some far-off historical fantasy. No, he sets it during the final desperate days of Mussolini's fascist regime, turning political allegory into an endurance test for audiences. If you've heard rumors about Salo, I promise the truth is worse. Within minutes, you're plunged into a world where wealthy fascists kidnap teenagers, subject them to a sadistic contest of abuse, and strip away every last shred of innocence and dignity. Pasolini isn't just shocking for the sake of it. He's crafting a monstrous mirror, daring you to see the depravity humans unleash when given absolute power. The violence is graphic, the sex is humiliating, and the degradation is relentless. Even decades later, first-time viewers report physical nausea and existential dread. It's not a movie you watch for fun, it's one you survive. Censors lost their minds. Italy banned it instantly. The UK called it obscene, Germany called it criminal, and even in France, a country not known for prudery, Salo was forbidden for years. Prints were seized, screenings raided, and even today, some countries only allow heavily censored versions. The controversy has never cooled off. Every time Salo resurfaces, think pieces and protests follow. Some call it art, others call it filth. The only thing everyone agrees on, once you've seen Salo, you can't unsee it. And that's exactly how Pasolini wanted it. Torso, 1973. Think slasher films started with Halloween or Friday the 13th. Torso was already slicing up audiences, and censors, years before Michael Myers ever donned a mask. Directed by Sergio Martino, this 1973 shocker set the blueprint for every Killer Stalks Teens movie that followed, but with a distinctly Italian twist. Way more nudity, way more psychological menace, and violence that makes American slashers look almost quaint by comparison. The story begins with a string of grisly murders in a small university town. The killer, a black-gloved psycho with a taste for red scarves and a serious vendetta against young women. As bodies start piling up, a group of terrified students retreat to a secluded villa, only to find the horror is just getting started. Martino cranks up the tension, making the audience squirm with scenes that linger just a bit too long, creating an atmosphere of pure dread. The infamous leg-sawing scene, still tough to watch, even after all these years. What put Torso on the censorship radar wasn't just the violence. It was the combination of sexual frankness, lingering shots of naked bodies, and a sense that danger could strike at any moment. Italian censors demanded cuts. Some TV prints chopped entire minutes of gore and nudity. When it crossed the Atlantic, American censors hacked away at the movie's most notorious set pieces. Even then, Torso gained a cult, following among those who wanted their horror as raw and provocative as possible. And here's the kicker. Torso isn't just about cheap thrills. Martino, working with genre regulars like Susie Kendall, injects real suspense, clever twists, and a sense of nihilism that sets it apart from its tamer American cousins. The killer's motive is shockingly bleak, and the final showdown is still hailed as one of the tensest in exploitation cinema. For horror fans and censorship historians alike, Torso is proof that Italy did slashers first, and, for a while, best. Emanuel in America, 1977. How do you get your movie banned on 3 continents? Easy. Just follow the Emanuel formula and then push it off a cliff. Emanuel in America is what happens when Italian exploitation decides regular softcore is just too tame. Director Joe D'Amato took his globe-trotting, investigative journalist heroine, played with fearless gusto by Laura Gemser and threw her into a world of decadent billionaires, secret orgies, and, most infamously, urban legends about snuff films. Yes, you heard that right. This movie built its whole third act around the most taboo, whispered rumors in cinema history. From the opening scenes, D'Amato cranks the sleaze meter to 11. You get beachside nude photo shoots, underground sex clubs, horse stables that go places they absolutely shouldn't, and a running thread of, are they really doing this? That never lets up. The infamous snuff sequence, bloody, graphic, and shot in a faux documentary style, landed the film on every major censorship list. Italy hacked it up, the UK nixed whole reels, and in the US, the only way to see it was via heavily censored import tapes. Even the actors reportedly had no idea what D'Amato was filming half the time. What makes Emanuel in America so outrageous isn't just its sexual extremity, but its insistence on mixing sleaze with pseudo-journalism and conspiracy. One minute you're in a high society party that turns debauched, the next you're witnessing staged executions. D'Amato, never one for subtlety, keeps everything so breathless and lurid that it borders on surreal. Here's the kicker. All that controversy only made the film more famous. Fans hunted down uncut versions for decades, trading bootlegs and whispering about the infamous snuff scenes. Today, Emanuel in America stands as a case study in how far you can push a genre before it explodes. If you want to see the film that terrified censors and delighted boundary pushers, look no further. Just be ready for a wild, messy ride. SS Experiment Camp, 1976. You want to know just how low Italian exploitation was willing to go in the 1970s? Look no further than SS Experiment Camp. In a decade obsessed with boundary breaking, this film became the face of the notorious Nazi exploitation subgenre, a cinematic playground of medical torture, sexual degradation, and war crime-level depravity. Director Sergio Garoni didn't just borrow shock value from history, he weaponized it, serving up a film that censors in multiple countries found beyond the pale. The plot is almost beside the point. A group of female prisoners in a Nazi medical facility are subjected to grotesque experiments by a sadistic commandant. There's forced prostitution, bizarre surgical procedures, and enough sexual violence to send even hardened grindhouse fans running. The promotional posters alone, featuring semi-nude women chained to operating tables, leering Nazi officers, and promises of forbidden acts, sparked outrage. In the UK, public complaints led to an outright ban. In Australia and New Zealand, even owning the VHS could get you a hefty fine or worse. But here's the kicker. SS Experiment Camp was far from unique. Italy churned out a whole wave of Nazi exploitation films, each trying to outdo the last in shock value. This one just did it with extra gusto. Moral watchdogs and politicians lined up to denounce it. Newspapers ran scandalized editorials, and yet, like clockwork, underground screenings and black market tapes flourished. For every outraged citizen, there were two horror collectors clamoring to add it to their most banned shelf. What does it say about the 1970s that a film like this not only existed but found an audience? Maybe nothing good. But if you want to understand the absolute limits of what Italian exploitation cinema was willing to serve up, at the risk of lawsuits, bans, and public scandal, SS Experiment Camp is your essential jaw-dropping pit stop. Just don't expect to feel clean afterward. Don't Torture a Duckling, 1972. Think Italian exploitation was all gore and sleaze? Lucio Fulci's Don't Torture a Duckling proves the genre could be smart, subversive, and just as shocking as any midnight shocker. Forget masked killers and cheap thrills. This is a movie that goes straight for the jugular of Italian society itself, and the censors absolutely noticed. The setup. A rural village is rocked by the brutal murders of young boys. The police are clueless, the villagers are panicking, and suspicion falls on everyone from a local witch to an outsider reporter and a reclusive sex worker. Fulci, the so-called godfather of gore, uses the trappings of a murder mystery to dig deep into Catholic guilt, superstition, and the suffocating power of tradition. The violence when it comes is jarring, especially the infamous scene where a witch is beaten to death while the soundtrack plays pop music, creating a disorienting clash that still rattles viewers today. But what really made censors lose their minds? Fulci's relentless attack on the hypocrisy and corruption of small-town life. The film doesn't just point fingers at the usual suspects. It accuses the community itself, suggesting that complicity and repression can be more deadly than any killer. Italian church groups immediately called for bans, saying the film was blasphemous and dangerous. In southern Italy, screenings were canceled after threats of violence. Meanwhile, other countries demanded cuts to the film's sexual content and unflinching violence. Don't Torture a Duckling never enjoyed mainstream success in its own country. Too taboo, too raw, too angry. But for cult cinema fans, it's a masterclass in how to shock, not just with blood, but with big, uncomfortable ideas. It's Fulci at his bravest and most controversial, a movie that proves exploitation isn't just about crossing lines, but burning them down. 7. Strip Nude for Your Killer, 1975. If you think giallo films are all about stylish detectives and clever puzzles, Strip Nude for Your Killer is here to rip off the gloves and just about everything else. Andrea Bianchi's sleazy 1975 entry isn't just a murder mystery, it's a full-on assault of sex, nudity, and violent spectacle, all drenched in 1970s Milanese glamour. From the moment the first corpse turns up in a photo studio, you know you're in for a ride that's a little less Agatha Christie and a whole lot more late-night cable. The plot? In classic giallo fashion, a string of murders rocks a modeling agency, and just about everyone is a suspect. Only here, the agency is really just an excuse for a rotating cast of beautiful women and oily men to strip, flirt, and eventually meet gruesome ends, usually in some state of undress. Bianchi throws in everything: sex in changing rooms, showers, and even operating rooms, all with a self-aware wink and a "how much can we get away with" attitude. Censors in Italy rolled their eyes and reached for the scissors, hacking away at explicit content for domestic release. The UK was even harsher, labeling the film indecent, slapping on bans, and forcing any imported version to be cut to ribbons. But here's the thing, the audience didn't care. In fact, the controversy only made it more appealing to fans of the forbidden. Late-night screenings, bootleg VHS tapes, and word-of-mouth legend kept Strip Nude for Your Killer alive long after mainstream critics dismissed it as garbage. But the real shocker, under all the sleaze and blood, Bianchi's film perfectly captures the anything-goes spirit of 70s exploitation. It's gaudy, it's trashy, and it's proud of it. Proof that when Italian directors wanted to shock, nothing was off limits. This isn't a whodunit for the faint of heart. It's a cult classic for those who believe censorship is just a challenge. The Gestapo's Last Orgy, 1977. You thought you'd seen it all with Italian Nazi-sploitation? The Gestapo's Last Orgy, original title L'ultima orgia del Third Reich, is the movie that made even jaded censors consider a new career path. Imagine a film so relentlessly depraved it made the censors behind SS experiment camp look like they were working for Disney. Director Cesare Canavari didn't just push boundaries, he trampled them, burned them, and then dared the world to look away. Set in a concentration camp during the final days of World War II, the film follows a sadistic commandant who gets his kicks orchestrating an endless parade of sexual humiliation, torture, and ritualized violence against female prisoners. The plot is really just a loosely connected series of set pieces designed to provoke, disgust, and test the limits of what could be shown on screen. Think sexual contests, cannibalism, flamethrower executions, and you're only scratching the surface. The reaction from censors was immediate and volcanic. Italy's own rating board was so scandalized it became one of the rare films outright banned in its home country. The UK predictably banned it as a video nasty. The US wouldn't go near it outside the shadiest grindhouses, and most of Europe followed suit. Yet, like all forbidden fruit, the Gestapo's Last Orgy found an underground audience. VHS bootlegs circulated among collectors as a kind of rite of passage. "Are you brave enough to sit through the whole thing?" was the whispered challenge. Critics, the few who saw it, called it obscene, revolting, and a stain on Italian cinema, which naturally only increased its cult appeal. Today, it remains one of the most infamous examples of a genre built entirely around shocking the audience. It's not for the faint of heart, or frankly for most sane viewers, but in the annals of Italian exploitation, it stands as a monument to just how far filmmakers would go to scandalize, disturb, and let's face it, outrage anyone who tried to censor them. So, are you feeling shocked, outraged, or maybe just a little bit curious? That's the power of Italian exploitation. The more they try tried to censor these films, the more unstoppable they became. Which title from this list would you dare to watch first, or never touch at all? Drop your answer in the comments, share your own cult favorites, and don't forget to subscribe for more cinema deep dives. Remember, in the wild world of film, what's banned today becomes legend tomorrow. See you on the other side.